You all know we have a beautiful seminary program, and I have 8 students that are coming into the finish line, and you've already heard 4 of them speak, and we ask that they do a Sunday service as a part of their training program. So today, Kesha is going to be sharing a message with us. And Kesha, again, started with Cheryl's class in metaphysics and then has been with me for the last 4 years. Kesha has such a different perspective of looking at things. If there could be a question formulated about something, she will ask it. And her soul is on this ever deepening search for a greater understanding of God. So I know that seminary is not the end of her journey. It's the beginning of that continual walk that is before her. So I love you, Kesha. Oh, and totally with my heart invite you to share your message with us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So all this month we've been asking the question, what is, on fundamental and foundational topics. First of the month we had Cindy sharing with us the answer from Spirit of what is love, where we learned that when we love, we are in God. And that was followed by a beautiful message from Patrick on what is truth, where we were reminded that relative truth is a path to absolute truth, which is God. And now today we're going to look at the question of what is family. And that would seem to be a pretty straightforward answer, wouldn't it? I mean, we all know what family is. After all, we all have one. But when we begin to look at it more deeply, we see that family can be defined a number of ways. And as it turns out, we don't have just one family. We have several. We've got the birth family and the extended family. And for those of you who are married and have children, you have your family. You've got your work family, your church family, and even, if you didn't know, you have a celestial family. So let's just start with the birth family. That's our parents and siblings. The extended family, of course, is our grandmas and grandpas. And in my case, it's a big ma, big daddy, a grandma, and a granddaddy. Aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. And like I said, that's a pretty easy one to define. And they are our first and primary contact with the world. And therefore, they initially have the strongest impact on shaping our character and personality. They are the framework we stretch the canvas of ourselves over. And in preparation for this service, I was guided to look up the word family. And I say guided because, like many of you, I assumed I knew what the word family meant and was prepared to speak on the topic from my common working definition of the word. Our present-day definition, as given by the Oxford Universal Dictionary, tells us that family is a group consisting of a parent and children, whether living or not, and in a wide sense, all those who are nearly connected by blood and affinity. And that was the definition as it was used in 1667. So even way back then, they had a concept of family that was more than just the parent and siblings you were born to. Family can also include the relationships that are woven together by a common thread of like thought, interest, activity, or will. And for me, the most interesting and surprising part of the definition was the etymology. The original definition of the Middle English word familia was servant, or servant of a household. Servant and service as the basis for family. So my next question, of course, was, well, how is that? And that's when Spirit began to show me. Many of you know that for the last 3 weeks, I've been traveling in Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkey, visiting my different families, mostly people that I met when I lived there 15 years ago and a few people that I met last year. When I travel, I'm either going to visit family, or at least I'm open to meeting my new brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. And to me, that seems pretty natural, and it might just be that I'm my father's daughter, and like him, I never met a stranger. And then I was reminded of something from the aquarium. It's chapter 17, verses 15 and 16. And this is, Jesus has just spent a day at the synagogue with the rabbi there at Nazareth, and he's gone home and he's recounting his day to his mom, where he says, "I do not see how God can have his favorites and be just. Are not the Samaritans and Greeks and Romans just as much the children of the Holy One as are the Jews?" And so in this, Jesus is expressing awareness that we are all related, because we are all children of our parent God. So, in Kyrgyzstan, I was with my Russian family. This is the family that taught me jewelry making so many years ago. And our initial tie and common bond was jewelry, its design, and its production. And as we got to know each other better, our common interests began to include fresh food, lavishly spread, saunas, and real estate. All of which we incorporated in grand fashion in my 2.5 weeks with them. I asked Spirit, how is it that I serve them? And Spirit was quick. Spirit said, "Kesha, you brought the light." The light, I asked. I didn't have a concept of the light until I started coming to InterQuest 6 years ago. So for me, the question was, how could I have brought something to them 15 years ago if I didn't even know that it existed? So Spirit's talking to me and says, "Kesha, you've always been the light. You just didn't know it. When you went to Kyrgyzstan the first time, there was a crack opening in their consciousness, prosperity and otherwise. Your light helped break it wide open." And that's when God reminded me of a conversation that I had had with Lydia Ivanovna. She's the mother that I spent my time with. She and I had this conversation before I left. And it was just the two of us, like it had been so many times before. And this was to be our last sit down for this visit. It was the first and only, and what I now know to be the last time we would share a drink. So we're talking, and she starts to confess, "Lakesha," because Lakesha sounds better in Russian than does Kesha, especially since Kesha is the word they used to call cats. So, "Lakesha, when you came and asked to study with us, we were afraid and tried to scare you off." "What?" "Yeah, we weren't used to being around foreigners and we didn't know what to expect, so we were afraid. We told you to come back in 3 months thinking that you would forget about it. But then you came back. So then we thought if we told you you would have to pay $2 an hour for your time in the studio, that would surely do it and you wouldn't come back after that, and that would be the end of it." $2 an hour. They didn't know me very well, did they? I was there all the time. And then she said, "But when you came, you fell right in with the boys. And that was how it was, and it was such a good experience. And so much so that we wanted to have other foreign students come and study with us. But then we couldn't find anybody like you." Oh, that was sweet. And they didn't have any more foreign students after me. But they did start to interact more with foreigners in general. And out of those interactions and experiences, they were able to grow their singular, fledgling, 7-person jewelry concern into an amazing enterprise of 16 plus people. They have multiple internet businesses that are simply raking in the dough. They have a 20-acre apple and pear orchard that they were starting to harvest right as I was leaving. Good timing. And so much real estate that it is hard for me to keep track of it all. And it was at this time that, like during this particular visit, that I wondered, well, how did I serve the light, or how did I bring the light this time? And then I remembered that even while I was there, well, let me back up for just a second. You have to know that in preparation for going over, I was a little weirded out about how am I going to explain this metaphysics and in Russian. Well, wouldn't it be easier if I just didn't talk about religion? my religion and just skipped over that part. But then it occurred to me that I live and breathe metaphysics. I live on this stuff. And I'm a 5th-year seminary student. I don't have a life outside of church. So if I was going to talk about anything that's going on with me, it was going to have to include church, and there was no way to get around it. Okay, so then I set my intention to, well, I'll just read a couple of books in Russian before I go over. So then I'll have, the dictionary in my head of things to say and words to use to express myself. And then it became clear that that was pretty ridiculous because I'm a 5th-year seminary student. I don't have time to read books, much less in Russian. So then, before I left, I just I said a prayer and asked that Holy Spirit give me the words that I would need to explain myself and my life in a way that would make sense. And you know what? It worked. I had all the words I needed, and I was able to share my beliefs and understanding with these people in a way that made sense, and not just make sense, but they were so impressed and so interested that they asked me to come and clear one of the houses that they had had trouble selling. So while I was away, I took IQ with me and did a house clearing and blessing, and it was awesome. So then I asked Spirit, how did they serve me? What's their service in my life? And again, Spirit was pretty quick. They show you what's possible when you just begin where you are and engage. So Spirit is funny, because I didn't ask that question until yesterday. But then I was immediately reminded of Vitya's comments to me from 2 weeks ago. And Vitya is the son that taught me jewelry. He's like the older brother I never had. Our back and forth banter is never ending. He picks on me relentlessly, and he tells me truth wrapped up in kick in the pants kind of comments. And so we were talking, and he said to me, you just need to get started. Just pick something and start. You have all these great ideas. You're waiting for it to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be. You want to write a book, but you're waiting for the whole book. Start with the chapters, girl, and send them to me. Keep going, and in the end, you'll have your book. That's a brother for you, and that's my brother. So that was a little bit of Kyrgyzstan. 2 days in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, I got to spend time with Sveta Matyakuba, who is a lovely Uzbek woman, a friend from whom I rented an apartment, or one apartment, when I lived in Tashkent. And she is like one of my aunts. Incredibly worldly and sophisticated, no nonsense, and always sees truth. And the Matyakubovs are a musical family, and that's our connection. Atanazar, the father, is a famed ethnomusicologist. He's just written another book, and I actually didn't get to see him this trip because he had been asked to write another book and had to go off to the dacha to do the writing. And then Sveta, she has taught music composition and harmony at the conservatory in Tashkent for ages. So when I lived in Tashkent years ago, I was lucky in that one of my apartments had a piano. And so to take advantage of the opportunity, I asked Sveta if she would teach me to play. And she did. Tuesdays and Friday mornings at 9 o'clock were really the highlights of my week. And I remember at one point, before leaving the country, I asked if she would help with my voice. And she joked, what do you want to be able to do? We can turn you into Tina Turner if you want. So I just laughed. But in the 15 years since, I've been practicing. So this time round, we were sitting at the table and talking, and I was telling her that I have this service on family coming up the week after I get back, but that I don't know what I'm going to talk about because Spirit hasn't given it to me yet, and that I'm a little bit perturbed because the only thing Spirit has given me is that for my closure, I'm supposed to sing this song. And Spirit has got to know that I am not wild about this idea. Because, I mean, you know, some fantasies aren't meant to be lived out loud. I then reminded her of the Tina Turner comment, and that led me to having to sing the song for her. And in the end, she said, you know, Lakeisha, it's likely that once you're done giving the service on family, it'll open a way for you to have a family of your own. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. Not her, too. At this point, it's been 2 weeks in Central Asia, and while everyone I meet is glad to see me, and everyone is glad that my life is so wonderful, they can't help but point out the fact that the thing that's wrong with me will be fixed if I get married. Not that there is anything wrong with me, but the thing that's wrong with me will be fixed if I got married. So 37 and unmarried, Central Asians do not have a concept. They just don't. Even a customs control officer, and I had conversations with several, said to me while looking at my passport, so do you have any children? And this is the quiet I've ever been. No. Well, where is your husband? Is he back in the States? Are you traveling alone? Where is your husband? Well, I don't have a husband. Well, what's wrong with you? And, well, can you take me with you? I said, honey, I would if I could, but you see my luggage, it's already full. Yeah, there was like 6 checkpoints. And just so you know, the question of what's wrong with you isn't at all meant to lay blame on me that there's something wrong with me. And it's not at all intended to be mean. It's just that they don't have a concept of 37, unmarried, never been married, no children. And I'm okay with that. Kind of. And so then I go back to my questions. You know, how did I serve Sveta? And Spirit's response, you, Kesha, are the quintessential student. I'm the only student she could teach freely without being the concerned parent or teacher. I was the joyful student without expectation and an opportunity for her to share her talent without concern over the outcome. The purity of teaching for the love of it. And I have a bit of that teacher energy in me too, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to be able to share and give to someone. So then I asked, what was Sveta's service to me? And Spirit said, she's doing for you what she always has. She's pointing your mind in the direction your life is going. She's how we get you on board without you flipping out. So we'll come back to that. And then for me, it was on to Istanbul, Turkey, the last 3 days of my trip. And, you know, I fell in love with Istanbul when we went last summer. And many of you know I fell in love in Istanbul last summer. And a lot of drama has happened since then. And I wasn't sure I would see him. And I wasn't even sure that I wanted to. And then, like, our first meeting was chance at the end of the day, just before I had to leave. Our second meeting turned out to be the same. I had spent all day at the Grand Bazaar hanging out with some lamp merchants and walking around. And partly walking around, secretly kind of hoping, wishing that I would run into him. And then about 4:30, I just decided it's been all day, it's not happening. I give that up. I'm done with that. And I decided that I would make myself crazy if I kept expecting and looking for it. So I stopped. And I stopped looking. And I stopped caring. And I just let it go. And then for a couple hours, it was great. It was just me hanging out at the bazaar, spending money, having a good time. And then around 6:30, the bazaar closes at 7. I decided to walk around to another section that I hadn't been to, just to see what was over there. And then there was something that told me to turn and look over my shoulder. And as I'm turning my head, he's turning his head and our eyes meet. And I could see his aura brighten, and I could feel my spirit lifting. And in my mind, I'm like, well, that's him. But no, he broke my heart last time. And I am not going to live through that again. It hurt too much. And besides, he didn't want to see me anyway. I sent him a text that I was coming, and he didn't call or send me a text back. So he pulled me into a shop and said, wait here, I have something for you. I forgot to give this to you the last time. And he scampers away and comes back with the most beautiful coppery peach cashmere and silk scarf I've ever seen. And he drapes it around me and ties it with this flourish. And I see it in his eyes. So forget the situation. He does truly love me. And that we cannot be together is okay because we serve each other in the expression of true love. And so I asked Spirit, why would you put me together with someone when we can't be together? And Spirit said to me, we need for you to know what great love feels like. You need to have a touchstone for when it happens for real. We need you to open your mind to the experience so you don't flip out. Sound familiar? So 37 and single, and my service is almost over. My birthday is coming up, and so maybe I won't be single forever. Now think about it. We all have these types of families, whether they're across the globe or across the country. There are people with whom we resonate over a common bond, purpose, and experience. Each of us coming together to be served by the interaction. And so to close, I wanted to share with you something from the aquarium. And this is chapter 106. Verses 15 through 21. And Jesus said, who is my mother and my brothers? Who are they? And then he spoke a word aside unto the foreign masters and the 12. He said, behold, men recognize their mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers here in flesh. But when the veil is rent and men walk in the realms of soul, the tender lines of love that bind the groups of fleshly kin and families will fade away. Not that the love for anyone will be the less, but men will see in all the motherhood, the fatherhood, the brotherhood, and sisterhood of man. The family groups of earth will all be lost in universal love and fellowship divine. And then to the multitudes he said, whoever lives the life and does the will of God is child of God and is my mother, father, sister, and friend. So let's take a moment to go inside and touch the energy of our families. You put your feet on the floor. Just close your eyes and take a deep breath. Feel yourselves present, surrounded by the love of God, supported by the chair beneath you. And with each breath, just feel God's love pouring into your spirit, filling you up and making you whole. See a column of white light coming down over you and over all of us. Having that love and that light quicken our spirit, we begin to lift up gently in that column of light, lifting up out of this physicality and our earthly realm and understanding. Lifting up to a space of peace and love and oneness. When we're a spirit, we are all connected and we are all related. And now from your heart, call forth the members of your family. Your birth family, your extended family. And all of those people you find yourself in common community with. As you see them in your mind's vision, just begin to send out that love of God that's been filling you up. And see that stream of love touching each one of them, enrobing them and wrapping them in. And feel the love and the gratitude in your heart for these people who have come into your world to teach and to share and to be your partner companions. And if you haven't asked already, and if you don't already know, ask, how is it that you serve them? How is it that you can be of greater service and show your love? And because we give, we also need to receive. Feel their love coming back to you. And just how wonderful that is. And their gratitude for your having met and having kept your long-standing agreement. Feel their gratitude for how you serve them. And now breathe in that love, breathe in that gratitude, take back your lessons, and tuck them away in your heart, knowing that they are there for you to touch whenever you feel like it. And gently descend down that column of light, back into the earth plane, back into this space here at InterQuest, back into your body, and back into your seat. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. A fifth-year seminary student, it's pretty difficult to stand here and want to be a minister and not listen to the call of Spirit. And so for the 3.5 weeks that I've been fighting it, I'm going to go ahead and just give in. This song, it's a sweet and gentle reminder that God wanted me to share with you. Of just how it is we can serve our fellow brothers and sisters. Brother and sister, together we'll make it through. Oh, yes. Someday a spirit will take you and guide you there. I know you've been hurting, but I'm still waiting to be there for you. And I'll be there to help you out whenever I can.